Welcome to the playbook. This is the 10K conversation, master salary negotiation. And I have to tell you, I really love this topic. I love hearing people who used to be afraid of negotiation, who used to never value themselves, who learn these techniques and go into the room and negotiate for everything they're worth. It is transformative. And so today we're going to cover an amazing amount of techniques and strategies that you can use to master salary negotiation. Here is where we are in the program. By now, you should have, you're negotiating your dream job. You know where you should be. You're going to go over exactly what to do, what to say, and how to prepare before you walk into the negotiation room. So here's the situation. Imagine this scenario. Close your eyes. The hiring manager says, "We'd like to offer you $48,000. That number is lower than you had in mind. So what are you going to say?" Now for many people, they haven't thought this far ahead. And so they blurt out an answer and say something like, sure, that sounds fine. And here's what happened to someone. That sounds, I appreciate the offer, but I guess that wasn't what I was hoping for. Maybe you can consider $55,000? And the hiring manager cuts them off with this. "That's not in our budget." Now, this is a really common response. Companies have a repertoire of objections, some of them real, some of them not. But one thing to remember is that it's not personal. This is a business conversation. Also remember that this isn't the end of a negotiation. If you heard this phrase, "that's not in our budget," would you know what to say? Well, unlike most people who hear this for the first time without preparing, you are going to learn to be tactical about it while also being natural and confident. I'm going to show you how to do that later in this playbook. And like natural networking, this is natural negotiation. This is fairly advanced. Now I'm going to show you how to negotiate so you can get as close as your ideal salary as possible, even if the hiring manager throws out objections like this. Now, when you think back to what you may have done in the past or what other people do in a negotiation, when they blurt out an answer or they don't ask for what they're worth, what do you think is really going on there? What's the psychology? A lot of us think that we are coming off as greedy or aggressive. Sometimes we ask ourselves, what if they say no? So here's how to dramatically improve your negotiation game, introducing the advanced negotiation power dynamics. In this framework, you have 3 key points, and we are going to go through each of them in detail. The first is to know your leverage. In a negotiation, leverage is power and you have to know what you're working with. Next, master your psychology. It's critical that you walk in confident about your abilities. Otherwise, the hiring manager is going to sniff it out. And their goal is to get you for as low a price as they possibly can. That's business. And then the third is nailing the negotiation. This is the tactics when you walk in and you have the conversation or you do it over the phone. You want to know exactly what you're going to do. So let's go deeper. Let's start with leverage. When you arm yourself with these advanced negotiation power dynamics, you're going to be able to walk into any negotiation and know how to overcome the majority of objections. So as I mentioned, with leverage is power. And in order to understand leverage, you need to understand what you have in your toolkit. So let me give you an example here. When you walk into a salary negotiation, you're in a position of power, okay? You have to know that because they've already gone through a recruiting process among many other candidates and they've brought you in. They've made you an offer. They have likely spent thousands of dollars already in time, recruiting fees, tools to bring you in. So you have to know that. Now, the key here is that now that they've decided they want you, it's simply a matter of details. Okay, let me say that again, because it's so important. Now that they have decided they want you, it's simply a matter of details. This is critical, okay? Once you understand that and truly internalize that, then the negotiation part doesn't become so existential. It's merely, hey, let's figure these details out. Great, we've both agreed we want to go to lunch. Okay, now it's just a matter of where are we going to go. Simple. So what you want to do in very simple terms is state your case. Stop talking and let them figure it out. Now when you walk in, Knowing your leverage means you need to understand the state of the economy. And I want to give you an analogy here. If you were going to buy a house tomorrow, would you expect to simply be able to go and give the absolute lowest price if there is not a lot of houses on the market? No, because there is something called supply and demand. So if there is a seller's market, that means there's lots of buyers, fewer houses. If there's a buyer's market, you've got tons of sellers and lots of houses. So think about that. Depending on the state of the economy or something external to you, that can dramatically affect your ability to negotiate. In other words, if there's a recession or your industry has contracted, you might have a low leverage. If on the other hand you have an industry that's booming, there's not enough supply, there is not enough people out there, then you have high leverage. And this is critical to know walking into your negotiation. So let me show you how that works. For a candidate's market, that's your market. The economy is good and there's low unemployment. What does this mean? It means that you can push likely for the top end of your salary range, or certainly the higher part of that range. If on the other hand you have an employer's market where the economy is bad and there's high unemployment, then my suggestion to you is be more flexible with your salary range and potentially less aggressive. I want to zoom out because you can study this and think about it as you pause and do a little bit of research on the state of the economy. But I want to zoom out and tell you what this all means for you. There are times when it's a candidate market. That's when you have great leverage. This is your opportunity to negotiate harder. This happens during low unemployment when virtually all top performers are employed and there is a tight labor market, okay? You're going to know this because all of your peers are going to have jobs. They're going to be getting calls from recruiters. There's going to be articles in trade industry press talking about the labor shortage, and you're going to see salaries going up and up, okay? On the other hand, there are times where it's an employer's market. That's where you have less power to negotiate. And that happens when there's high unemployment, lots of people looking for jobs. It makes a lot of sense. Just think about the price of cranberries, right? If there is a ton of supply, price is going to go down. Labor markets respond accordingly. Now, I do want to emphasize that there can be variations. There can be an oversupply of certain jobs and a lack of supply of other jobs. And this is why you see certain professions that constantly get paid a lot. It's because oftentimes there are just not enough people in those industries. So you need to be well versed on your industry. And this happens through natural networking, and this happens through general industry research. By the time you get to the step of negotiating your salary, you should be well versed in knowing what is going on in your industry. So let's also talk about demands of the company, because that factors into your leverage. Again, we already talked about industry, what's going on in the industry. But let's now talk about the company itself. If the company needs to hire, then you have higher leverage. What do I mean by that? Maybe the company is moving into a strategic initiative. Maybe they simply need to create a mobile app. Well, if that's the case, then they are going to be willing to pay more. That's what's called strategic. Strategic, if you really boil it down, means we're willing to spend a ton of money because it is critical or existential to our existence. So how do you find out if your role or your potential project is important to the company? Well, you've already done it. You've done it in natural networking. You've done it by reading the interviews of the CEO. And you can also look at how long they've been trying to hire for that position. Okay, these are ways that you can start to understand your leverage within that company. Now, if you've been following the Dream Job system, great news. You're already way ahead of the curve. We helped you build these knowledge base through all the foundational work that you've been doing in earlier playbooks. So, you cannot control the economy. You cannot control the demands of the company, but you can control your own dream job process. And that means you can get warm introductions. You can understand what the company is looking for and make sure you position your experience accordingly. And of course, you can use the briefcase technique in your interview to blow them away and really impress them. So this is where you really start to see the power of the dream job process and how it all culminates with you giving yourself major advantages for salary negotiation. Let's now move on to the second part of the advanced negotiation power dynamics. And this is mastering your psychology. Now, this is absolutely critical. After you have gotten the basic facts of what leverage you have available to you, now it's time to really buckle in. Now it's time to really buckle in and say, am I ready to negotiate? And this is where many of us get nervous. We get anxious. We start to talk ourselves out of it. And what I'm going to do is show you some ways of reframing your inner psychology so that by the time you walk into the negotiation, you're extremely confident. You should know that hiring managers can sniff out negative self-talk. They can sniff it out because they speak to many, many candidates every day. Let me show you some examples of what I mean by that. I'm afraid they think I'm being too greedy. What if we reframe that to, I deserve to negotiate? I'm lucky they're even offering me a job. What if we reframe that to, I deserve to get paid within this industry range? Or, why would anyone hire me? If you're really confident, you can reframe this to, this company is lucky to have me. I'm doing them a favor by negotiating my worth and delivering maximum value in this role. The key point here is for you to really look inside. And if you need to enlist the help of a friend to ask you some questions and really unearth these negative phrases that you have inside of your head, and then reframe them for the positive. Remember, this is not personal, it's business. Your job is to try to get paid the maximum amount while delivering the maximum value. That's your job. There's nothing wrong with playing within the rules of the game. We're not saying you have to be rude. We're not saying you have to be confrontational or adversarial. But you should certainly advocate for yourself. It's also important to recognize that one thing that helps your psychology almost more than anything else is to be in demand. Just think about this. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine that you're walking into a salary negotiation where this is your only offer and you've been at it for 3 months or 6 months and they make you an offer. How does it feel to negotiate for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 more? It's a little nerve-wracking, isn't it? Now keep your eyes closed. Imagine you have 3 other job offers. How would it feel to negotiate your salary now? Of course it's completely different, and this is the critical point here. I am more desired when I'm in demand. We intuitively understand this because if we drive past a restaurant that has a line out the door, we want to look inside. What are they serving there? What's that restaurant? That must be pretty good. We should try to get a reservation there. If you have another job offer on the table, it can be incredibly powerful to surface that information to the hiring manager. You can say something like this: look, I really want to work here. This is my top choice. But company B has extended me an offer that's significantly higher. What can we do about that? Now, a couple of things I want to note for you. You don't have to tell them the name of company B. They're not entitled to know that. You also are not obliged to tell them what their offer was, although you can use that information if you like. But the critical point here is using the dream job process. One of the reasons we encouraged you to run multiple processes in parallel is that if you're good and if you're fortunate, you may end up with multiple offers around the same time. And if that happens, then you're in a high leverage position. So let me go into a little bit of detail here on how that works. For those of you who are fortunate enough to be able to get multiple offers, you really want to think through the logistics of this. Because it can be the difference between letting down 3 or 4 companies or actually getting the optimal offer. So this is how you want to do it. First, you've applied to tier 2 companies. So you kind of understand the process now. How long does it take, etc. You want to start by deciding when it's time to apply to tier 1 companies. Okay, this is critical because you need to time the reception of all the offers. Next, you want to find out how long the typical interview process takes at each company. Now, you can check online, you can ask your natural networking contact, or frankly, you can ask anyone at the company. They will be able to give you a very straightforward answer. And then this is critical. Time your applications so that as many job offers as possible come in at approximately the same time. Now again, if you're listening to this and you're simply looking for your first job offer, you may want to skip this section. But I want you to hopefully listen, because there will be a point in your career when you are using this material again and you're actually confidently getting multiple job offers. And I want you to remember this because you're going to come back and say, Manuel said something about multiple job offers, engineering them. How do I do it? Boom, here it is. If at any time one of these companies is moving too slow, or you're receiving one offer that has an exploding offer, that means that it expires. Then you can start to take control of the job process. Once a candidate has an offer from another company, a company who's interested in you will move heaven and earth to expedite the process. I hope you're listening to this with your eyes wide open saying, oh my god, I didn't realize I have this kind of control. Yes, if you are a candidate a company wants, you have extremely high leverage. So this is how you engineer multiple offers and potentially a bidding war. I want to emphasize to you that you always want to be candid with the companies. So it's really critical you're not lying to any companies. That is not good ethics, it's just not good at all. You don't need to do it. So you want to be really thoughtful and you want to have decided which company you would ideally like to go for and at what price. That's an important point. You don't always have to go to the company that offers you the most money. In fact, many times that can be a mistake. You want to find a company that's the right fit for you and your career. So finalizing this psychology section now, how do you maximize your dream job advantages? Well, follow the briefcase technique. Make sure you are practicing your interviewing and negotiation and study the best. Make sure that you are studying all the people who have careers like the kind you want to have. And you're going to walk into the negotiation room very prepared. Finally, in the advanced negotiation power dynamics, let's talk about the actual mechanics of the negotiations. Here's where we get into this a little back and forth. They're going to make their offer, you're going to make yours, you might give a little concession. Here's how that might play out. Hiring manager says, we'd like to offer you $48,000. How would you feel right now if this is lower than you have envisioned? What would you say? Well, the good news is that the bulk of the work is already done by the time you have this conversation. It's done because you did your natural networking and your perfect marketing materials. They know all about your high competence triggers, okay? They've seen it day in, day out, as they have interacted with you until this point. So they already know that basically you're a very high caliber candidate who came to play, alright? You're not going to be some pushover. So, key thing you need to know is this conversation, first of all, is your salary range. Let's talk about identifying your salary sweet spot. And this is basic table stakes for a salary negotiation. You need to know two numbers. Your absolute minimum, which is the lowest you would consider, and your reasonable ideal, which is the most you could reasonably expect. Now, when they give you the number, I want you to resist the urge to say, sounds great, no matter how happy you are to receive that offer. When you get the offer, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and I want you to say that number out loud. 58,000. Think about whether you're going to accept, like in green, or negotiate, like in yellow or red. Take 10 seconds if you need to. You can even say, would you mind giving me a minute to put up my notes? Also, I should add, you should thank them. Thank you so much, I appreciate that. Would you mind giving me a minute to put up my notes? So if you're in the green, you can say something like this. Thank you so much. I'm excited to begin. I think we have a really great fit here. I'd like some time to think it over, if that's alright. When should I get back to you by? Great. Just give yourself some time, even if it's a great number. If you're in the yellow, you might say something like this. First of all, thank you. I'm excited to begin and I think we are in the same ballpark. I'd like to talk about the salary. From my research, it looks like the standard range is from 70 to 90k, and actually towards the higher end of someone with my qualifications. I'd like to discuss that range. And if you're in the red, first of all, thank you. I'm thrilled to be considered. I have to be honest though, it looks like we are pretty far apart on salary. I'm really interested in the position, but from my research, etc., etc. Now, whatever the case is, state your response and then stop talking. I call it the STHU technique. Stands for shut the hell up. Too many of you ramble at this point and you give away all your power. Just state your response and then be quiet. Now what if they say that's not in our budget? Okay, remember, this is not personal. You should expect this. Ideally they would say, oh, okay, great, you want 70k? Here, let me give you 90k. How about that? But that's not going to happen. That's not their job, okay? So don't take this personally. Simply smile because you knew it was coming. To me, it's refreshing. It's like sitting down at a restaurant and they bring my water and they fill it up. I just smile. Oh, I knew this was coming. It's all part of the process. When I hear this in a negotiation, I just smile. Okay, good. We're playing that one now. Okay, great. Activate the protocol. Let's do it. So what do? Introducing the negotiation arms technique. Arms, agree, reframe, make the case, and then shut the hell up. This is how it works. Take these top 5 common objections. It's not within our budget. We can't pay more in this economy. We pay all of our employees, etc. this much. We have a standard process. And why don't we discuss in 6 months? Let's see how the negotiation arms technique plays out with some of these. It's not within our budget. Most people, oh, sure, okay, that sounds alright. Most people just say that, but often there's room in the budget for top talent. So using the arms technique, you can say something like this. I understand, of course, times are tough, and I agree that for an average candidate, the budget would definitely be a good place to start. However, as I showed you in the interview process, I fully intend to make an above average contribution, and I think I've demonstrated a track record of doing that. So I simply ask that the compensation reflects that. Shut up. That's the negotiation arms technique in action. Let's do it again. We can't pay more in this economy. Interesting. Well, let's take a look. I totally get that. Times are tough, but I would actually consider this an investment in finding the right candidate for this position. In fact, I think that that's even more important in a down economy because the right person can help you turn that around. And that's exactly what I intend to do, specifically in my 30, 60, 90-day plan. So keeping that in mind, what can we do here? Do you see what's going on here? It's not adversarial. It's building upon all the things that I've talked about during the interview and application process. My briefcase technique, my 30, 60, 90-day plan. Whatever I've brought to bear that has impressed them enough to make me an offer. I want to lean back on that because remember, I'm solving this hiring manager's problem. This hiring manager just wants the problem to go away. They're throwing money at it. And if it's going to cost them even extra 5k or 10k to get me, somebody who they feel very confident in, that's well worth it. Now, how do you make concessions? At this point, we're getting into a little bit more art than science. This is a balancing act. I want to emphasize that first-time negotiators who use this material tend to be a little clunky with it. And when I say clunky, you guys are a little too aggressive. So I want you to remember your goal is not to extract the maximum amount of money, because you can extract every last dime and you can leave a really bad taste in the mouth of your future teammate. Instead, you want to be flexible. You want to make sure you're looking at the North Star. What is your North Star? I want to build my career. I want to grow in my career. Or have a lifestyle focus or reinvention. Yeah, of course I want to be paid fairly, but I'm not trying to squeeze every last dime out of you. I want to make sure that we both feel good about this and we can get to work. So this is where the art comes in. And if I could advise some of the people who actually were made an offer to and who it didn't work out with, one of the things I would tell them would be, you negotiated a little too hard, you know? You thought you won the battle, but you actually lost the war. So in these negotiations, there is going to be a lot of back and forth, and you can use concessions strategically, okay? Concessions are a very powerful tool in your toolkit. Now these should take into account the economy. If you have high leverage, you don't need to make as many concessions. If you have low leverage, then you might make several concessions. There is some art and science to knowing how to do this and when to give up on concessions. So here's an example. The key is to make little concessions, but also to acknowledge that you are making them. Don't just say, okay, sounds good. You can say something like, I totally understand your position and I'm flexible. On the one hand, I really do want to walk away from this with a number that's a little bit closer to what I had in mind. Would it be fair if we met halfway at $80,000? Now you notice my tone there, right? I totally understand your position. I'm flexible. In this case, this hiring manager may have said to me, look, we need a start date of 2 weeks from now. We can't do 2 months from now. So as the candidate, I might say, I totally understand your position and I'm flexible. I can start then. On the other hand, So you can see that this is a back and forth. and it's friendly. What we are both trying to do is figure out how we can achieve our North Star, which is having me start work and get to work on these businesses' problems. That's how you extract value from negotiation, how you can make concessions without being overly aggressive. And there's lots of other things that you can ask for or make concessions on. For example, shorter review cycles, a delayed start date, signing bonuses, stock options, relocation bonuses. And for this, the key is you can simply say, look, there's a couple of other things that I wanted to discuss with you. Remember though, read the room. If you have just gotten a hiring manager to agree to a $25,000 raise, and then you go down a litany of 5 or 10 other things, that person is going to start to get pretty annoyed. I would get annoyed, so you should know when it's time to wrap it up and say, thank you very much. This is great. Let's do it. Now, the ladder of negotiation is a guideline that you can use here. You can ask, for example, for your biggest request, like a salary increase. Then you can do a smaller request, which might be an early performance review. The person might then ask for a slightly larger request, a 4-week unpaid vacation before the start date. As a hiring manager or personally in my own business, I could be a little flexible with that. If somebody, I want them to start in 2 weeks and then they want to start in 4, maybe we can make it 3 or even 4 if it's not a critical time sensitive project, okay? So these things can be valuable to you, maybe even more valuable than the money, but you want to be thoughtful about how you bring it up. And also remember, do not try to get every last nickel and dime you can. That's not the goal. And one last thing, smile. Look at that beautiful smile. Oh, I look so happy. I am happy. And I want you to be happy in these negotiations. But if you walk in like this, okay, let's talk about this. Oh, thanks for the offer. Now I need to get an extra $5,000. It's not good. Smile. You should be comfortable. You're basically just talking about details because you both agree you like each other. So this should actually be a really light, friendly process if you do it right. So to refresh on the advanced negotiation power dynamics. First, you want to gather information so that you know your leverage. You want to understand your leverage in the economy, your leverage with the company, and then you want to maximize your own control by using the dream job system. Next, you want to master your psychology. Reframe that negative self-talk. You're worth it. And you should negotiate to get paid what you're worth. You are also more valuable when you are in demand. So if you can engineer multiple offers, please do. And finally, you want to nail the logistics of the negotiation. Now this means you want to be comfortable, you want to be smiling, and you also want to remember that every important thing, do not try to get every last nickel and dime out of somebody. Because this is going to be your future manager, your future coworker, and you want to start off your relationship positively. So here are your key takeaways. Negotiation is very important and it's about more than money. Top performers constantly ask for what they're worth while still understanding subtle power dynamics. Be prepared for objections. A lot of these are predictable and you can prepare ahead of time. And finally, what you say is just as important as how you say it. Remember how much I emphasized smiling. And remembering that this is about relationship first, not simply about getting an extra $1,000 or $2,000. This is critical, and I want you to remember that. Have my little voice speaking in the back of your head as you prepare for these negotiations. Here are your action steps. Find your acceptable salary range and prepare that 2 to 3 extra items you'd like to ask for in your initial negotiation, as applicable. Next, scenario plan out 3 different offers in the red, yellow, and green zones and memorize a few key phrases and scripts. And finally, practice a full negotiation for each offer and potential objection. Do this in a mirror, on camera, or best against a skilled friend. Good luck.